accident happened out of the blue. Not sure what you're gonna do. Medical bills keep piling high. GOLDLAW's by your side. When insurance tries to run and hide, GOLDLAW will be your guide. After your wreck, when you're feeling the pain, GOLDLAW works to handle your claim. If you slip and fall, don't worry at all. Just remember who to call. Choose the twos. That's 56122.
Welcome to the Gold Standard Radio Show. I'm Craig Goldenfarb, your host and the founder of GOLDLAW. We've been a personal injury law firm in West Palm Beach for 25 years. This is the show where we spotlight the individuals and organizations making a real impact in our communities. Those who embody excellence, integrity, compassion, and the gold standard in everything they do. Every week we'll sit down with game changers, difference makers, and unsung heroes who are shaping the future of Palm Beach County and beyond. Whether it's through advocacy, innovation, or service, these are the people setting the bar high and showing us what it truly means to lead with purpose. So sit back, get inspired, and let's dive into the stories that define the gold standard. Hello, this is Craig Goldenfarb with the Gold Standard Radio Show. I'm here today with a Palm Beach County legend, Dave Aronberg, who has had a long career in public service. And Dave, since you've had such a long career, why don't you just summarize for us the different positions you've held both at the state attorney and elsewhere?
Craig, it's great to be with you. We've known each other a long time. I started government work when I was an assistant attorney general. So I worked for Attorney General Bob Butterworth. Remember him back in the day, late 90s, and we went after consumer fraud together. So my biggest case was taking down, or at least taking down Miss Cleo. Remember Miss Cleo, the former Jamaican Shango shaman psychic who is neither Jamaican nor a Shango shaman psychic? Well, that led to a documentary on HBO recently, and that was probably my most famous case there. But I think the one that was most meaningful to me was investigating Purdue Pharma, the makers of the drug OxyContin, and that set my career in a different direction.
So you were also had some government office positions you've held as well. So tell us about that.
Right. Well, then I got into elective office. I ran for the state senate in 2002. Time flies. In 2002, and got elected in a district that goes from West Palm Beach over to Fort Myers and Bonita Springs. And I was there for 8 years. It was elected 3 times. The first term was a 2-year term. And then I ran for Attorney General of Florida, and I lost in a Democratic primary. And I campaigned on the opioid epidemic, on going after these pill mills that were so ubiquitous. It was killing 7 people a day because of this opioid addiction. This was a part of my work that I started under Bob Butterworth, the Attorney General, in going after Purdue Pharma, the opioid epidemic. I just continued it as a state senator, trying to pass a prescription drug monitoring program, trying to close down the pill mills. But when I left the state senate, the legislature did just about nothing. And that's why I ran for Attorney General. And after I lost in the primary, the Republican who beat the Democrat who beat me then hired me as her drug czar. And she said, I'm going to reach across party lines. I want to go after this problem. And she appointed me. You may have heard of that Republican, the one who won the race. Her name was Pam Bondi. And so she reached across party lines, and together we shut down those pill mills. And then I ran for state attorney in 2012 and got elected and served as state attorney for the next 12 years. And I focused on a different part of the opioid epidemic. Before, I focused on OxyContin, oxycodone, fentanyl, heroin, and Purdue Pharma. Now I was focusing on the rehabs, the drug treatment centers. Many of them were established to try to help people overcome their addictions. But what happens when the rehab centers themselves are corrupted? What happens when they are based on fraud and abuse instead of getting people well? Well, that is the Florida shuffle, and that was my target.
So it looks like you've taken on in your career in the last 20 years two parts of the opioid epidemic. The one is the drug manufacturers themselves, and the second is what happened mostly in Palm Beach County, which was really ground zero for these awful addiction centers, which some of them are legitimate and some of them, it seems, were just managed just horribly. Does that sound correct? That you were hitting two aspects of this problem.
Yes, and we depended on the legitimate ones, the good guys in the industry, to take down the bad guys. The good guys were losing business. I mean, you'd have legitimate rehab centers who were doing really solid work, inpatient care. They'd have group therapy, and then someone in the group therapy would be recruiting patients to leave to go elsewhere, offering them money or in-kind payments, free rent, these type of things. And so this was the industry at the time. We're talking about 2014, 2015, where it really got so bad, where you had all these sober homes popping up around our communities, where communities could do nothing to stop them. A sober home could open up in your HOA, and the HOA could do almost nothing. And that was because of well-intended federal laws that prevented discrimination against people in recovery. And so if you lived in a sober home, which is a group home, there's no drug treatment. It's just like a halfway house where you live while you're going elsewhere to get treatment, outpatient care. And yet local governments could not say that, no, you have to have restrictions. They couldn't inspect them. They couldn't certify them. And so they popped up everywhere. And you have all these owners of these sober homes, the bad ones, the rogue sober homes, were owned by people who saw patients, residents, as a commodity, not as human beings. And so they'd give them like free rent as long as you went to a treatment center down the street, an outpatient treatment center, that gave the sober home kickbacks. How else can you live somewhere for free? Well, if there are illegal kickbacks going on, that's how it was done.
And I know you wrote a book on this topic that you have with you today. It's called The Florida Shuffle, and you co-authored it with a local physician, David Campbell. Why don't you tell us about that book, Dave?
I met Dr. Campbell through a mutual friend, Vicki Niedig, and Dr. Campbell, who was appearing a lot on Morning Joe. That's actually how I got on Morning Joe myself. That's what started that part of the career. He had written a book about telling parents how to talk to their kids about drugs, and he was very interested in the opioid epidemic. So we hit it off right away, and then we started on a book. Now, the book took 4 years to write. It was a lengthy collaborative process, but we really liked the product because it exposes the Florida Shuffle, which is this unending series of relapses instead of recovery. It's the model of corruption in the rehab industry that has taken so many lives. People come down here to try to get well, and instead they leave in an ambulance or a body bag. And that's because they're lured down here under false pretenses, often with a one-way plane ticket, which is illegal. And then they get into this unending cycle of relapse. So, Craig, if you had a broken arm and you went to the emergency room and the doctor in the emergency room said, okay, hey man, I'm going to fix your arm, but let's break it again when you leave. And every time we break it again, I'm going to give you $1,000. Come back every month. You would say, get lost. I'm calling the cops. You're a sicko. But what if you're under the brain disease of addiction? What if you have substance use disorder? Then you're often, in many cases, a willing victim. Then when someone offers you drugs to relapse and you can live for free and you can get all these free benefits, you're like, yeah, I'll take that. It's hard enough to break your addiction as it is, let alone knowing that if you continue to stay addicted, you're going to get free housing and free transportation and everything is taken care of. All you have to do is to remain in this unending cycle of relapse, of failure rather than recovery. The money is in failure, not in relapse. And the reason is because of the way that insurance is required to reimburse, and that is based on the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act, which has helped so many people get insurance who otherwise couldn't afford it, unfortunately has an old school fee-for-service reimbursement model when it comes to drug rehab. It's not care, it's not reimbursement based on the success in getting you well. It's based on how many times you can go through the treatment. So if you're a bad provider, you're like, all right, let's keep going through it. There's no limit on how many times you can go through the cycle. Under the Affordable Care Act, there's no limit in the number of times you can get treatment, yearly or lifetime. So if you're a bad provider and you're getting reimbursed on an old school fee-for-service basis, you're encouraging people to come back to rehab as many times as possible.
And I think, if I recall reading in the paper, that a lot of this was urine test reimbursement, that they'd be sending in thousands of urine tests because there was a high rate of payment for that.
Yeah, that we have a chapter called "Killing the Golden Goose," because the original basis of this fraud was the urine test, the urinalysis. And they would test people every day. Like, you needed to be tested every day, and then they'd get huge reimbursements from insurance. And everyone was making money. And it was just a cycle of dirty money back and forth based on these urinalysis. Now, eventually, the insurance companies caught on to that and stopped the huge reimbursements and limited the number of times you can get reimbursed for urinalysis, but then it moved to other things like equine therapy or DNA testing. Like 23andMe would be the new the new way they'd get money from the system, or the confirmatory urinalysis. I mean, they would find a way to get you in there, and if you had good insurance, you were a target. And ironically, the insurance that many families thought would get their child well led to their demise, because that's what made them a target. You had brokers out there who would call you up and say, hey, leave that rehab, come to this other rehab. I'm going to give you money. I'm going to give you a plane ticket. You're going to go to Heavenly Valley Recovery in Delray Beach. Mind you, there are no valleys in Delray Beach, and where you're going ain't heavenly. But this was the Florida Shuffle, and it was happening right under the noses of our politicians and of law enforcement. We had weak laws at the state level, weak laws at the federal level, and you had other laws like the Affordable Care Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act that unintentionally were being exploited for nefarious purposes.
So, Dave, you know I'm a personal injury attorney, and we handled several of these cases. And what struck me as part of the sadness, when a lot of our clients were dead, they passed away after going through the Florida Shuffle, and their parents, when I contacted them, or when they contacted us, they said their first contact was that they thought their young one, who was over 18, so they didn't have to know about it, they thought their loved one was in a facility in their home state, which may be New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York. But in fact, they found out their child was found dead in the streets of Delray Beach. And so these places were actually preventing the victims from contacting their parents. And the parents, when they got the first phone call saying your 19-year-old has been found dead in Florida, they said, my kid's not in Florida. They told me they were going to rehab. So the shuffle started in the Northeast because that's where a lot of good insurance was. And it ended up that these young adults were being shuffled down to Florida. And then they were making sure these young adults didn't even tell their parents where they were. Did you see that in your investigation?
All the time. We have stories in this book where that exact scenario happened to them. And we have the exasperation of one parent who said, because of this HIPAA, that's the healthcare privacy law, the treatment centers were using it as a sword against us to say, no, you're not coming down here. We're not telling you anything. Your kid is over 18. You have no rights. And then they would use it as a way to keep these kids in this cycle of relapse where people who tried to help them were stopped at the front door. And that is another example of another federal law that's well-intended, just like the Affordable Care Act, just like the Americans with Disabilities Act, but was used as a weapon to help people who want to do others harm for money. And it's really a shame. And that's why there's a call to action in this book to try to get the federal officials to tweak the laws that are on the books. We don't need wholesale changes to the laws. I mean, this problem could be ended if the Affordable Care Act was just tweaked to reimburse drug treatment the same way that the Affordable Care Act reimburses hospitals. When it comes to hospitals, it's based on outcomes. If you are a hospital with excess readmission rates, you get penalized under the Affordable Care Act, but not if you're a drug rehab. If you're a drug rehab with lots of readmissions, you get rewarded. You get more money. So what needs to be changed is change the fee-for-service reimbursement model that we have for drug rehabs into an outcome-based reimbursement model. Based on outcomes, how well does this treatment provider serve their patients? How successful are they? And that's where the reimbursement, the dollars should go in that direction. But right now, the dollars are moving in the opposite direction. The ones that fail get more money. The good ones get less money under the Affordable Care Act.
So is there anything pending in legislature nationally right now to make these tweaks?
I appeared before Congress twice. I testified twice. And the members of Congress were nice. They asked good questions. And then after the hearings were over, nothing happened. I know it's going to shock you that in Congress, nothing gets done. But nothing got done. And here we are. That's why I wrote the book. It's called Fighting the Florida Shuffle, because there is a silver lining there. Not only is it a call to action, but it actually has a roadmap to how we in Palm Beach County were able to help fix this problem. Now, we did it with one hand tied behind our backs, because until federal law changes, we're limited at the local level. But we're able to form a Sober Homes Task Force. We have stories about that, about how we cleaned up the industry with the help of the good guys in the industry. And we're able to change the laws in Florida. And I'm a former Florida senator, but I've been down on the Florida legislature for years and the way they operate. But I must give them credit. When it came to this issue, the Florida legislature responded, and they gave us the money, the seed money, to help our task force, and they worked with us to change the laws. And now Florida has the best laws in the country when it comes to the regulation of drug rehabs. When it comes to sober homes, you're limited to how you can regulate them because of the Americans with Disabilities Act, as I mentioned earlier. So we have a carrot-stick approach where we have been able to clean up the drug treatment and sober home industry in Palm Beach County, and it's described in this book, and it's a roadmap for other jurisdictions around the country who may be unaware that this problem even exists.
And this book, you brought one today. You said the hard copy is out, and the soft copy, you have a copy here today. So how would one get this book, Fighting the Florida Shuffle, Dave?
Yeah, you can go on Amazon and just type in Fighting the Florida Shuffle. And I appreciate those who'd like to purchase the book. And if you do, if you ever see me, I'd love to sign it for you. In fact, I brought a book for you, Craig. It's the first time I'll ever inscribe my name in any of these books because it's hot off the presses. So you're the first person I'm giving a book with a signature on it. Like, I'm going to write it to Craig. You tell me, let's see. Thanks for the friendship. Love being on the show. GOLDLAW, the Gold Standard Show. I got to think. There's so many choices, so many options. I'll have to ask Don and Noah which of those I should do. Noah, what do you think? What's best for social media?
The Gold Standard.
Okay, the Gold Standard.
It's definitely one of our taglines, so that'd be great.
You're lucky you have such a great team, by the way.
I do have an amazing team. They're fantastic between marketing, social media. So we like to help others hold people accountable like you do, Dave. So, that's our mission, is we hold accountable those who hurt others, which is similar to what you do and have done in your whole public service career. So you mentioned that you testified in front of Congress. Basically nothing was done, which leads me to my question, like, why is right now the right time to publish this book?
Every day that passes without any change means that there are individuals out there who are taken into this Florida shuffle and then, sadly, as I said, leaving in an ambulance or a body bag. And if we can act now, we can save lives. Every day we wait, lives are lost. And what's really tragic about this is that communities don't even know. I mean, that the rehabs that they're counting on are that there's some of them that are so corrupted because of federal law. It's not in spite of federal law. It's because of federal law. Because federal law has enabled it, has encouraged it, has incentivized it. And that's why I needed this to get out there. I've testified before Congress twice. I have posted on social media. I've done interviews, and nothing has changed. So I thought maybe a book can help change it. I just didn't realize that the book would be so long in having to write it, to find a publisher, to get it published. This is my first book, and it was quite an ordeal. I'm hoping that if I do a second one, it'll be quicker. But I can say this, it's a good product, and it contains all the information you need to know, not just about identifying the Florida Shuffle, not just about fighting the Florida Shuffle, but also there's a chapter in there for families who are dealing with the scourge of addiction to help find a good ethical treatment provider in sober home. There are specific points on how to find the right treatment providers. One thing that's been a frustration is that people will often spend more time researching how to buy a TV, what kind of TV to buy, than what kind of behavioral health provider to use.
Do you think, when I was researching this, because my law firm has handled so many cases like this, I was researching, sober homes and halfway houses and different treatment facilities. I'll tell you, these companies, because they're earning so much money, they're really good at a lot of glitzy marketing. So it was difficult. And if I was a parent looking to get my child into one of these facilities, you do a Google search on drug treatment in Palm Beach County and you get 10 beautiful websites. I mean, that's obviously a challenge, huh?
Well, that's part of the book, too, because when we started our task force, we learned that Google just sold terms to the highest bidder. So if you had a rehab in Delray Beach, you could buy up the words rehab near me. So when someone in Seattle would type in rehab near me, up would come a Delray Beach one. Now, it would be done in a concealed way, and then you'd call them, and they'd say, yes, it's near you, just a plane ticket away, a flight away, and I'm giving you a free plane ticket. Now, that is a felony. And now Google has changed the way it allows treatment centers to advertise. So no longer do they sell terms to the highest bidder. Now they all have to be vetted through a third-party legit script. And that's because of our task force. So what you describe is the tip of the spear. It's the advertising. It's the marketing deception. That's what led people down here in the first place. And we've finally been able to squelch a lot of it. Not all of it. There's still a lot of buyer beware. But people need to do research. Don't go to the first one that pops up on Google. Don't go to the ones necessarily with the slickest website. Do your research. Talk to people. And there are specific prescriptions on how to find that drug treatment provider in this book.
So basically, Dave's saying, you're saying if you're looking to get your child with this addiction into a facility, and even if you're looking to move them to Florida, it's incumbent upon you as a parent to really dig deep and get references and do other things, to not just depend on the internet.
Correct. Do the research you would do on your vacation for your drug treatment provider. Just at least that. Right now, we've seen this so often where it's a Google search, and it's not, you may be wondering, why don't they talk to friends? Because there's a stigma when it comes to drug rehab, and people are afraid to talk to others. So they do it in the secrecy of their home, the privacy of their home, where they do a Google search and they rely on some anonymous a place where they're advertising in a deceptive manner, and they just depend on that because they have a slick website. That's the worst thing. And when you see a red flag, like a free plane ticket or any incentive whatsoever, that should mean that place is to be avoided.
So I remember when I was doing my research on these places, when I started to bring lawsuits against them for children dying, I was thinking, well, why Palm Beach County? And then I started to look at these websites, and it was amazing because the cover sheet or the homepage of these websites had pictures of young people playing volleyball. And I was like, wow, so your kid's addicted to OxyContin, and you're a parent, you're looking at this, and you're basically saying, oh, my kid can live on the beach. So that seems to be just crazy marketing. So that leads to my question. In your opinion, what was it about Palm Beach County that caused it to be the epicenter and ground zero of this problem?
Who was the bank robber who said, well, the reason why he robs banks is because that's where the money is?
Right.
Right? When it comes to why Palm Beach County, it's because Palm Beach County has always had a vibrant drug treatment industry, especially Delray Beach. It was known for it. Part of it is the climate, but culturally, it was just there. I mean, it was just there and it was a success. But then when the Affordable Care Act came in, it incentivized the wrong people to enter the industry. And so you had some rogue individuals who descended upon our community to take advantage of those people who would come down here for recovery. And then it just spun out of control. It's like a lot of places around the country have gambling. Why do you go to Vegas? It's Vegas. Why do you come to Palm Beach County for rehab? Because it's Palm Beach County. You'd rather come here than to go to some snowy climate elsewhere in the country. It's not as enticing. We've seen people get off their plane at the airport here at PBI with golf clubs to go into recovery because they were promised that you'd be in paradise getting 18 in every week. Not so. We've seen people with polo saddles. They're thinking, they're told they're going to be riding horses. This is a tragedy, and it continues around the country, but less so here because we've been able to clean it up.
So I noticed in line with the climate part that the other epicenter, from what I saw, was Arizona, which has equally great treatment facilities and weather, I guess, depending on what part of the country you want to go to. Did you see that as well?
Arizona, Malibu is a big problem. Orange County, California is a big problem. I traveled there, too, along with Al Johnson, who's the head of my Sober Homes Task Force when I was state attorney. We went out there and we met with League of Cities and other officials to try to tell them what we did. They wanted to know how we did it. The problem in California, though, is that they can't get out of their own way. There's no trust among the disability rights community, the League of Cities, the politicians. Everyone mistrusts each other. So when there's a bill, some ordinance that's tried to regulate the sober homes or treatment centers, the disability rights community says, you're trying to discriminate. And so they're at a standstill. The ACLU gets involved. And so it's paralysis by analysis out there. In Florida, we're able to build that trust. That's one of the things I'm proudest of, was that we had this trust where we can bring together the industry, advocates, and League of Cities, government officials all together, knowing we're trying to do the right thing. We're all moving in the same direction because we want to save lives. It's not about discriminating against people with substance use disorder. It's not about NIMBY, not in my backyard. It's about working together to get people help and save their lives.
Were there moments, Dave, where you felt it was just too broken to fix at that point?
Never at the local level. There are times when I think that you can't fight City Hall at the federal level, where Congress just doesn't know or doesn't care about it. When you ask a congressman or U.S. senator, and I did this once, there was a U.S. senator visiting, and I asked him about this issue, and his response was, more drug rehab. Like he didn't understand the problem. What if the drug rehabs themselves are corrupted? Throwing more money at the opioid epidemic by creating more beds at drug rehab can help people. But unless you are dealing with the inherent corruption that is enabled by our current laws, then at the same time you're helping some people, you are leading to the demise of others.
So, Dave, you brought this great book today, which was 4 years in the making, with David Campbell, Fighting the Florida Shuffle. And David Campbell, local, and also forward by Joe Scarborough from Morning Joe. So, David Campbell, local orthopedic surgeon?
Yeah, he's a great guy, and he's my co-author. And Joe Scarborough, who's a close friend of Dr. Campbell's and whose show I appear on, Morning Joe, he wrote a foreword to this. And I must say he did a great job. And he wrote that himself. This wasn't like ghostwritten by AI or by one of us. He wrote that himself and wrote beautifully about a friend of his who died from an overdose. And it was, I thought it was very powerful. So we included that right up front in the book. And I think it's an important book because this is the message that needs to get out to our policymakers, also to our families, to do the research, to avoid these scams. And it's also to honor the memory of those whose lives have been lost from the Florida Shuffle. We have some stories that happen right in our community, things like you mentioned, where parents were desperate. It came down here. They flew down here from New York, not even knowing until they finally found out that their child had been here for weeks, not knowing, and then coming down here and the place literally closed the door in their face because of HIPAA rules. So why is this still happening in our country, that well-intended federal laws continue to do people harm? Well, it's time for us to call it out.
So, Dave, in closing, Fighting the Florida Shuffle, what impact do you hope this to have nationally and locally?
I'm hoping it will help change the laws at the federal level. I'm hoping it will save lives. And that's the most important thing. And that's why it's important for me to be on your show and to keep talking about it, because a lot of people don't know this problem exists, especially other communities. Palm Beach County is the only community in the country that had and still has a sober homes task force that is out there to clean up this plague. Meanwhile, in Broward, they don't have this. And there are no walls across county borders. And so you have a lot of the bad treatment centers who have packed up, left our community, and gone south to Broward and other parts of the state where, although it's not allowed, there's not a proactive attempt to shut them down.
Well, thank you, Dave. As someone who's allied with you in fighting this problem, I do it through civil litigation and holding them responsible civilly. You do it through attempted local state ordinances and have tried on that national level. So we're on the same team, we're on the same direction, and I thank you for your efforts in helping to cure this scourge, which results basically in lives being lost. Many lives being lost. I see it from the civil justice system, and you see it in all the things that you do. So, Dave, thank you so much for the first signed autographed copy from you to me. That's a big honor, and for everything you've done for most of your career in helping save lives.
Craig, thank you for having me on, and thank you to your audience. Check out Fighting the Florida Shuffle. There's another book out there, I think, called Florida Shuffle. Mine's Fighting the Florida Shuffle. You got to have those extra 2 words.
The Florida Shuffle is like old people dancing?
I don't know who first coined the term, but it's out there. Yeah. So thank you for having me on, Craig.
You're welcome, Dave. It's been an absolute honor. This is Craig Goldenfarb with the Gold Standard Radio Show. I've had the honor today of being with Dave Aronberg, who's written a great book that basically summarizes a lot of what he's done over the last couple of decades. And thank you. That's a wrap on another episode of the Gold Standard Radio Show. A huge thank you to our guests for sharing their incredible journey and for being a true beacon of excellence in our community. At GOLDLAW, we believe that when we lift others up, we all rise together. If you know someone in our community making a difference, someone who lives and breathes the gold standard, we want to hear about them. So please reach out, connect with us on social media, and let's continue celebrating the people who are shaping a brighter, stronger future for all of us in Palm Beach County. Until next time, I'm Craig Goldenfarb. So stay inspired, stay committed, and keep raising the gold standard.
Every day, 1,500 children in Palm Beach County wake up in foster care through no fault of their own. They have been torn from everything they know, facing fear, uncertainty, and unimaginable hardships. Many have suffered neglect, abandonment, or abuse, and now they must navigate a complex system that often falls short of meeting their needs. But they're not alone. That's where Speak Up for Kids steps in. We provide life-changing advocacy, life skills training, and essential resources to help these children heal, grow, and thrive. From educational support to everyday necessities, we bridge the gaps so they can have a future filled with possibilities. But we cannot do it alone. These children need champions, someone to stand in their corner, fight with them, and remind them they are valued and not forgotten. Will you be that champion? Visit www.speakupforkidspbc.org today and take action. Your support, whether through donating, volunteering, or simply sharing our mission, makes all the difference. Together, we can bring hope, stability, and a future to children who need it most. Don't wait. Take action now. Visit www.speakupforkidspbc.org and be the hero they deserve.